Audio check. Is the voice okay? Could anyone please tell me if the voice is fine? All right, thank you. Excellent, excellent. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, we've got 1.5 minutes. We'll start exactly at sharp 4. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, Nikhil. How? Hello, hello. Good evening, Aditya. Good evening. All right, it's 4 o'clock sharp in the evening. Let's start with immediate effect. So, this is essentially to cover all major reports and indices that are necessary to be done before the prelims exam. I've shortlisted them, the very, very few. There will definitely be a question. If there has to be one, the question will be from either of the things that we're discussing today. All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Right. So let's start. So the basic idea is we're going to cover important reports and indices today. Tomorrow at 4 p.m., we'll cover the major international organizations that have to be done for the prelims exam, so that in 2 days all your international organizations reports and indices are all done in one go in an hour at the most. The slides have been uploaded on the drive on the channel and are also available here. You could download them after the session if you want to. This session is completely free, and in some time would also be available on YouTube for you to watch, so that you can finish up as much as is possible in the shortest amount of time. All right, so let's first get some key insights in place. Very simply put, a report is a sectoral analysis. For example, the macroeconomic sector, the industrial sector, the health sector, the education sector, the general intellectual property sector, anything. So reports analyze a sector, whereas indices or indices or a singular form of indice is an index. It will be available. These are called rankings. So an index is a ranking, a report is an analysis. Simple as that. So an index is like, for example, Sensex is an index, or the Global Hunger Index is an index. It ranks things on certain parameters, and that's the larger idea. Okay. Now, this is something important. It is an index can be based on a report. For example, there's something called the Human Development Report, which uses certain criteria to explain developments in human development. The Human Development Index is an outcome of the Human Development Report. So the Human Development Report also has something called the Human Development Index. The index is the ranking, the report is the analysis. Okay. Also, there could be an independent index. You don't necessarily need to have a report for having an index. For example, the Global Innovation Index. There is nothing called the Global Innovation Report. So the index basically ranks countries on which country is the most innovation friendly, which countries have the best policies to promote innovation. So that's the idea. Reports are sectoral analysis. Indices or index is basically a ranking. An index can be based on the basis of report, and an index can also be an independent or a separate evaluation. It doesn't matter. So that's the basic idea. In 2 minutes, you must understand this. There isn't something to particularly be worried about. Okay. Now, this is important to understand. How do we shortlist them? What is the criteria that we use? On what basis have I shortlisted a few, and why do I think these are important and these would be asked eventually at some point of time? Okay, Basaraj, just give me a second. I'll just have this checked. If the audio is not clear, just give me a second. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, what is the shortlisting criteria that we use to understand what reports or what indices have to be done? So, please watch this carefully and let's understand this. Okay. All right. Let's start. Yes, Ayushi, a report can be based on an index. That's what we meant. I will take up questions in a while. Please listen to the lecture first. Then I'll tell you when to ask your questions, and then you can ask your questions so that the flow of the lecture doesn't get uh, uh, slightly disturbed. You can post your questions like Satyam and Arpit have, and I'll answer those questions when the time is right. Okay, let's start. So, for a report or an index to be important for the prelims, it should fulfill the following criteria. Now, how have I come up with the criteria? A simple analysis of the last past year papers, and I've cross-referenced the last past year papers with developments in current affairs. Okay, so the criteria is: first, it should be written by a UN or a UN related agency. So it could be the UN Development Program, it could be the World Bank, it could be UNICEF, it could be UNESCO. If it's a report which is written by the UN or a UN agency and it has been in the news recently or otherwise, then you must know which specific organization has written the report and what is the broad criteria on the basis of which a report has been made or an index has been made. So, for example, IMF. Now, let us say IMF publishes a report X. Now, IMF is a UN related agency, which basically means that I need to know that IMF has written it, and two, I also need to know the criteria on which the IMF has decided to rank countries a certain way. Okay, that's one of the reasons why a specific report or an index becomes important. Two, because you're writing a domestic exam, so the reports must have something to do with India. So the second criteria would be um, India should have shown a major change in her performance recently. Now, this usually is a positive change. For example, ease of doing business index, but 90% of the time, it's always a positive change. If there's a positive change, then that report becomes important. There are very, very few cases where a report has been asked where India has performed badly on it. But just to cover all bases, I have ensured that all of them are available. Okay, so the idea is India should have shown a major change in her performance recently. Now, this usually means a higher performance or a better performance, so to speak. And if that is the case, then the author and the broad criteria of the report must also be known. Clear on this? So there are two kinds of reports where you need to know the broad criteria in the author. One, if it's written by a UN or a UN related agency. And second is India should have shown a major change in her performance recently. By recently, I mean at the most a year. So even if you looked at, say, report changes from October onwards, that's actually more than enough. The reports don't go beyond October, so you don't have to worry about it at all. All right. Okay. Now, third, if there has been a new report written by any organization, UN, non-UN, could be an NGO, could be a multilateral organization, but it is a new report or a new parameters, then in that case, you just need to know who's written that report. You don't need to know the contents of the report. You don't need to know the criteria on which the report has been framed, and that's it. As far as technical details are concerned, technical details of all core sector reports should always be avoided, which means I don't need you to know the specific criteria on which the Human Development Index has been calculated. I don't need you to know the inequality coefficients on the basis of which the larger issues of gender inequality have been identified. So for those very specific reasons, this is the shortlisting criteria. You can also use the same shortlisting criteria and you can add or subtract your reports as and when you think that is necessary. But I think for all practical purposes, what we're doing right now should be more than enough. So quickly, for a report to be important for the prelims, remember this, it should fulfill any of the following criteria, not all of the following criteria. One, should be written by the UN or a UN related agency. Two, India should have shown a major change in her performance. And three, if a new report or new parameters have been conceptualized. In the first two cases, the author and the broad criteria, whereas in the third case, only and only the author needs to be done under all circumstances. All right, excellent. Now, we'll start with the first. I'm going to go slow. I'm going to go through this one by one, and you must pay attention as to what is going to happen. Core sector means health, education, one of those. All right, let's start. So we're going to go organizationally. The first and one of the most important organizations for reports and indices is, in fact, the World Bank. Okay. Now, there are only 5 reports of the World Bank which have been relevant, which I think are important for the pre. Out of these 5, also, I'll tell you which must be done under all circumstances and which can sort of be left out if the need might be. Okay. Let's start with the first. Okay. The first is called World Development Report. Okay, World Development Report. Now, this report is largely on industry and employment and workforce and wage conditions and employment conditions and the quality of work. What the World Development Report actually, in a very simple line, does is it tries to understand what is the impact technology is having on the nature of work, which means is automation killing employment? Are wage rates getting affected? How can technology be used to make work conditions better? How can technology become better to ensure there are advancements in the nature of someone's work? So for the prelims, as far as the first report is concerned, this is all I need you to know. I just need you to know there's something called the World Development Report. Now, an easy way to remember this is world is here and World Bank also has the word world. So world, you can easily get it right that the World Development Report has been written by the World Bank. Clear on this? World, you'll be able to remember it. It's on industry and employment, and it basically looks at how technology is changing the nature of work. And that's it. Nothing more, no other details have to be known. This is just an analysis. There are no indices, there are no rankings of countries, just what the report is about. Because this is something interesting. This has happened last year. Therefore, there could be a question on the same. Okay. Now, second, the doing business report, also which translates into the ease of doing business index. All right, so what does this mean? First things first, let me also tell you, as far as ease of doing business or the doing business report is concerned, it has already been asked twice in the exam. Once it was asked as to who makes this, and second was asked which of the following are not components out of this. Why has this been asked so many times? Because firstly, India's performance has drastically improved on this, and we have celebrated this across national and state media around the corner, which is largely why this report becomes important. Having said that, there has been an improvement in this report last year also, but we've had a question on this last year. We've had a question on this 2-3 years ago. I do not think that this year there will be a question on doing business report or the ease of doing business index. So how it basically works is there's something called the doing business report. And on the basis of the doing business report, the criteria which has been explained, which has been quantitatively measured, then you come up with something called the ease of doing business index. So the index ranks countries on which country is it easier or more convenient to set up or expand a business, whereas the doing business report explains the conditions, their impact, what can countries do to become more business friendly, so on and so forth. So again, the World Bank, okay, the World Bank is the one which is drafting this report. And you must understand there's a trick. Why does the World Bank do this? It's because when you're looking at business conditions, uh, business factors don't necessarily impact business conditions. For example, for that matter, you could say larger policy issues, the larger nuances of financial policy, economic policy, availability of land, availability of easy payments of taxes, relatively low taxation rates. These are larger factors, right? And this is largely about creating more development because businesses create development. And the World Bank is largely a welfare development kind of an organization which wants the countries to become better. So that is why the ease of doing business index is actually something which is drafted by the World Bank. And the index, again, obviously also is drafted by the World Bank. It's an industry related report, and it essentially looks at factors that assist in on setting up or expanding a new business. That's it. Last year there was a question: which of the following are not factors that affect the ease of doing business index? The answer was law and order, because you cannot, very simply, you cannot quantitatively measure effectiveness of law and order. That was a trick to answer that question. Otherwise, what is easy? Taxes are easily payable. You have low taxes, easy approval rates. Let's say a single window clearance and things like these. Okay, so the larger idea is the ease of doing business index. Again, drafted by the World Bank. It's essentially looking at factors that assist in setting up or expanding new businesses. There has been a change in India's position. We're now currently at 63rd. Again, I'll also be very clear on this. You will not be asked this number in the exam. You will never be asked what India's actual position is. This is just to elaborate on context for you. And yes, India has constantly been improving on the following front. Okay. All right. So that is that. Now you move to the third report, the Logistics Performance Index. Okay. So interestingly, the logistic, no, factors don't have to be remembered. That's what I said. If they have to be, I would mention them as and when we get along. Okay. Third, logistics performance index. Logistics performance index is basically to figure out which country has more supportive regulations for logistics companies. FedEx, DHL, Blue Dart, First Flight. These are logistics companies. Now, logistics companies drive businesses because they are the ones who are responsible for the transportation of shipment from point A to point B. Okay. Now, your idea is your basic idea is, how does a specific country, very honestly, allows, or what kind of freedom, what kind of ease of doing business for courier services is logistics performance. So if I have to make you understand this in one line, it's basically ease of doing business, but only and only for logistics companies. That's the simplest way to understand what a logistics performance index is. So it's the ease of doing business for courier services in a country. You don't have to know India's performance because this is too specialized a parameter, and you don't have to worry about it too much. All you need to know is, if somebody ever asks you what is logistics performance index, you can say it's basically ease of doing business, but only and only for courier companies. Any form of logistics or courier companies is logistics performance index. And you don't need to know anything more than that. This should be enough as far as this, the third index, is concerned. Okay. Then fourth, okay, we look at something called human capital index. Again, developmental related, uh, again, something which basically means for welfare of the society or people at large, or a larger chunk of humanity. So human capital. Okay. So it's basically related to human resources. Very simple line. It ranks countries on which country is best utilizing the economic and professional potential of her citizens. So, for example, somebody has, let us say, an IIT degree, an IIM degree. Now, what is the country doing to make sure that IIT, IIM degree holder stays back in the country? This is basically to check which country has the least amount of brain drain, to put it in one line. So, human capital index. Now, this is again about development. This is again about welfare. This is about the larger macro socio-economic policy of this country, and that is why it is called the human capital index. Arpit, yes, we are not very good at it. We're not very good at a lot of things actually. Clear? So that's the human capital index. All right. Excellent. So ranks on which the country is best utilizing the economic and the professional potential of their citizens. That's all we need to know. Okay. Now, lastly, global economic prospects. Prospects. Now, the key word here actually is actually prospects. Prospects means potential for development. Prospects means potential for development. What is allowing, or what conditions that exist in a country, and what are the opportunities of growth in that country? Okay, it is opportunities of growth in that country. Again, it's a macroeconomic report. It's a macroeconomic indicator, and in that case, what it actually looks at is it analyzes the growth potential of countries. Okay, now it's important to know that according to this report, India is one of the fastest growing countries in the world, despite the general growth of the world, the growth rates of the world going down. The author of the Logistics Performance Index, as I said before, is the World Bank. That's the title of the slide. Okay. All right. Excellent. So, do we understand this? So, global economic prospects, which is essentially a macroeconomic indicator, it analyzes the growth potential of countries, and India is one of the fastest growing, despite a general lack of the trends of growth in the world. Okay. Now, remember, how would you remember this in terms of the World Bank? Prospects. Prospects means development opportunity, and development opportunities are largely looked at from a World Bank perspective. Okay, so on prospects could be on everything, on industry, on health, on education, on availability of resources. There are tons. There is a reason that we are not looking at the specific component, because the components are too vague. If the components were important for them for the exam, I would have written them down. So please understand the same. Okay, all right. Is this enough for the World Bank? And that's all that we need to know. There is nothing more that is needed for the World Bank. I'll quickly answer a few questions here before I move to the next. Satyam, in a few days, perhaps. I'm not sure. I will check the Unacademy team and I will let you know, but it will be there. Okay? All right. Next question. So report suggested by you has to be read from original ones or from vision. No, you don't have to read the report at all. You just have to read the slides that I've given you. That is more than enough. The question would be enough to answer the slides are enough to answer the questions, because the only question that you get is who's written them, and in some cases, what are the broad parameters. Whatever parameters are important, they would be mentioned here. Otherwise, you can happily ignore them as and when the need might be. Okay. All right. Uh, no, you don't need to know the number of countries under the indices, Tanveen, not at all. I will talk about Niti Aayog indices also. So, okay, in the next slides. So please have patience. Okay. No, you don't need to know collaborating agencies at all. Ministry is important. Talking about international reports, Suraj, you don't need to know. I'll talk about Niti Aayog's indices. Shubham, I'll give you the slides. They're available. Don't worry. it is possible to anticipate because broad social criteria remains the same. You don't need to do the ranks for logistic services. Why do you need to rank logistic services? Is because the more friendly a country is for logistics companies, the better would be the movement of transportation of goods, because that happens from the manufacturer of a specific commodity to the final recipient of the specific commodity. Okay, you don't need to know the specific indicators in detail, not at all. All right, I'm going to stop questions from now, and we can move on to other things. No, we don't need to remember India's trend. Um, Reports are not released on a monthly basis, Abhijit, so don't worry. Uh, Wherever is needed for India's position, I will tell you. Otherwise, NA usually stands for not applicable. You don't have to do this, or it's not needed for the exam. All right. Okay. All right. Done. Now we move to the next. There is one and only one report from the International Monetary Fund that you need to do. I will do the organizations tomorrow at 4 o'clock. These are the reports. So when I do the organizations tomorrow, I will tell you what headquarters is important, what memberships are important, what India's membership status is important. We'll do that later. Just focus on what's happening right now. And please restrict your doubts in the first place so that we can carry on with class. And whenever I am open to doubts, you can answer those. Okay. Aditya, please wait for the slides to get done. I will obviously talk about indices. I've done my research. If something is important, I will put it on the slides. All right. So let's start. The International Monetary Fund. Now, as far as the International Monetary Fund is concerned, you only and only need to know one and one report called the World Economic Outlook. Now, there's a reason I had to tell you this is because here the keyword is outlook, and here the keyword was prospects. Prospects are developmental related, and outlook is an analysis about what is right and what has gone wrong. Okay, it's a macroeconomic report. It is basically, to put it in one line, is an international version of the economic survey. It's just explaining what are the larger macroeconomic issues that the world is facing. We need to understand the impacts of these international issues. What are the major macroeconomic developments, policy changes that countries around the world could make to make their economies more thriving and more resistant to slowdowns. Okay, it's just a report, it's not an index, so India's position doesn't apply at all. If at all there will be a question, the only question is going to be who has drafted the World Economic Outlook, and your answer is the International Monetary Fund. That's all, nothing more. The World Economic Outlook implements, or the World Economic Outlook is the author is the authored by the International Monetary Fund. All right, and that's all you need to know as far as the International Monetary Fund is concerned. Clear? That's it. Not a line more on the left, not a line more on the right. Now, this is very, very important. Okay. WEF stands for the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum is an NGO. It is a non-governmental organization. It is an NGO which is headquartered in Switzerland, and it is an international NGO. So it essentially looks at being a stakeholder or a platform provider for businesses, the government, bureaucracy, and all stakeholders to essentially ensure larger development in the world. Now, the World Economic Forum has four very important reports and indices, and we must answer them as and when needed. Okay, we first start with something called the Global Risk Report. We start with something called the Global Risk Report. Okay. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because it is tricky. Most people would think global risk would mean risks to businesses, risks to humanity. The actual answer is it's a macroeconomic report, and it basically analyzes the risks to businesses. Okay. And this report recently says that the biggest risk to businesses are actually environmental in nature. So, environmental risks such as man made disasters, loss of biodiversity, reduction in fertility, these are all components of the global risk report, and that's all is needed. Okay, that's all that is needed. So, in fact, when biodiversity losses happen, the productivity of the environment decreases. So, the productivity of businesses decrease because businesses are dependent on environment. So, it's kind of a vicious cycle. Now, you will not be asked the components of global risk. I have changed the slide, Ravi. There could be a problem on your end. The slide is the same. It is showing the World Economic Forum on my setup, right? Okay. So it's basically the World Economic Forum drafted. Shom, is there a problem? Is the wrong slide being shown? Guys, can you please tell me? Is there a problem? Is WEF not shown at the moment? Okay, one second. One second. One second. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Got it. Got it. Got it. All right. Thank you. Now, so let's start. So the Global Risk Report basically analyzes the risks to businesses. And the Global Risk Report says that environmental factors are the biggest risk to businesses in the world today. That is all you need to know. Now, you must understand that the World Economic Forum is like a more diversified version of the IMF, where the IMF only and only looked at core economic problems. The World Economic Forum looks at the culmination of the economic problems with other factors in the same place. So, no doubt they're two very different organizations. One is an NGO, the other is a multilateral organization. But in terms of what they do, they're actually higher versions of the same. Right now, that is first. That's all you need to know as far as the global risk report is concerned. You don't need to know anything more than that. Now, the second report, the Global Social Mobility Index, the Global Social Mobility Index. This is very, very, very important for prelims this year because this is for the first time an index like this has been created. It is drafted by the World Economic Forum. It's largely on the sector of governments, which makes me understand what on earth is social mobility. Okay, so social mobility basically means, in one very simple line, is the current generation leading a better life than the previous generation? Are the children leading better lives than the parents? And what socio-economic factors are affecting those changes? This could mean education, health, wage conditions, technology, information communication technology, access to justice. It could mean everything. Okay, so for example, in India, it would mean the kind of provisions we have for SC/ST, OBCs. It means everything that basically makes people lead their better lives and have a higher standing in society. The components of this are not important at all. You don't need to know the components of social mobility because everything affects social mobility. If a country has a sound criminal justice system, then people who violate the law will be punished faster. If a country has good economic potential which is being harnessed properly, then people will attain prosperity better. If people are more educated, then people will get better jobs, so they will climb the social ladder. So technically, everything in the world affects social mobility. Okay, right? Okay. Sachin, no, if you could go to the World Economic Forum's website and if you actually read the official document, it clearly says comparison of lives between current and previous generations. Okay, so this is basically what it basically means is social mobility is understanding the socio-economic conditions which basically in one very simple line, understanding socio-economic conditions which affect the kind of lives the current generation is leading as opposed to the previous generation. Okay, so that what are these factors? Law and order, education, health, digitization, training while getting a job. These are all some of the factors. You don't have to know the factors in detail. Nobody is going to ask these factors. Okay, Vishu, I'm not discussing the World Economic Forum's Davos summit. I'm discussing the documents that they essentially deal with. Okay, all right. Now, a total of 82 countries had participated in the first ever index. And well, as you can see, India is 76 out of 82, which means India has very, very poor social mobility. Obviously, just for your information purposes, the Scandinavian belt, Norway, Finland, that belt of the world, uh, always ranks at the top and is doing very, very well at the same moment. So India is towards the bottom end. Norway, Finland, Sweden, other countries which are in the top 10, obviously because of their certain policies. Clear? So this is all you need to know as far as global social mobility index is concerned. It is new, so it is important. It is drafted by the World Economic Forum, which is an NGO. It essentially looks at reasons which affect a betterment of a generational life before the previous one. And India has obviously performed very, very badly on the same. Okay. Now, India's position is 76 by 82. Now, next is Global Competitiveness Report, which also eventually means the Global Competitiveness Index. So the index is based out of the report. Again, it's a macro report. See, you will notice that these reports are more or less the same. The criteria is so diverse. That is why the criteria is never asked in the exam, except for ease of doing business, where India had shown such a big change. When India showed such a big change, then yes, no doubt the criteria becomes important. But these criteria is not needed at all. Okay, so the Global Competitiveness Report basically looks at a combination of micro and macroeconomic factors, which basically means what is the liberalization policy of the country and what are your wage rates in the country. If you add both of them together, how competitive does a country become in terms of market opportunities? Okay, now India has lost a few ranks. It's currently at 58. Again, you don't have to memorize the rank at all, not needed. And one of the reasons that the report says is because of the trade war in China, with China. India is losing a lot of markets. India is not really fulfilling its dream, its market potential and stuff like that. Okay, all right. Next is gender gap report and gender parity index. Okay, the gap report and the gender parity index, they're essentially the same thing. The gender gap report is the report by the WEF, and the gender parity index is actually an index which is based on the gender gap report. It's very interesting to note that gender parity is one of the leading international documents figuring out gender gaps. Okay, so it's obviously relating to gender rights, and it looks at four parameters: uh, political, educational, health, and economic. That is it, which means do women get enough representation? Do women get enough access to education? Are healthcare facilities denied to somebody because of a gender? And are women getting equal wages? Are they getting competitive chances to promotion and stuff like that? So India hasn't been doing very well. We've lost ranks here also. We're currently 112. Okay, that's all. Nothing more, not a word more, not a word less. This is all that is needed. Please take my word. Trust me on this. We're reducing your work here. You don't have to worry about any more details. So the gender gap index, which is from the gender gap report, is essentially this. Clear? 112 out of 276. Lost rank means we've lost our positions from the last years. Travel and Tourism Competitive Index is too narrow a report. We don't need to do it. It's essentially about which country has better conditions for travel or the travel sector to be invested in. Okay, right. Global Competitiveness Report. Sure. So the Global Competitiveness Report basically is the macroeconomic policies of a country and the microeconomic policies of the country. When you add both of them and you relate them to the macroeconomic trends of the world, which country is most competitive, which country is doing the most amount of growth in a larger context. So that ways is how the global competitive report is taken into consideration. Okay. No, you don't have to do the total number of people, total number of countries participating in an index. Okay. Yeah. Gender gap is the name of the report. Gender parity is the name of the index. Okay. That's all you need to know. All right. This is the World Economic Forum. This is all you need to know at this very specific moment. There's nothing more that is needed. These are the four reports. I have a very strong feeling one out of these four would be asked for sure. Okay. So that's pretty much it. Global competitiveness example is, let us say, the as I said before, let us say ease of doing business in terms of single window clearance, or let's say the national manufacturing policy when analyzed in the context of minimum wage conditions in the country. That's essentially how it works. All right. Third, the UN Development Program. Again, there is one and only one report of the UN Development Program that needs to be done under all circumstances. And that report is essentially one of the most heavily relied reports in the world. It's called the Human Development Report. It is basically on governance and social issues, the larger dominance of these as far as the world is concerned. Now, the Human Development Report essentially looks at three primary conditions: life expectancy, education, and per capita income, which basically means health, education, and economics. That's basically what it means, right? Now, the Human Development Report has a total of five indices. I'm sorry, I've written it as four incorrectly. Has a total of five indices. These indices have been taken with keeping the Human Development Report in mind. Okay, the primary idea is the Human Development Report, and on the basis of the Human Development Report, these indices have been created as an outcome of the same. Okay, now first is Human Development Index. Second is the Inequality Adjusted Index, which means it's Human Development Index plus you add inequality parameters, inequality on the basis of gender, caste, creed, religion, economics, for that matter. Gender Development Index, which country has done the most to improve the status of women? Gender Inequality Index, which country has the highest discrimination in the world when it comes to gender? And Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index. Now, I understand Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index is complicated. You don't need to know the components of it at the moment. All you need to know is the Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index is implemented by the Human Development Report. Now, please listen to this carefully as to what I'm going to say next. I understand that you have a lot of questions as to whether this should be read or this not should be read. The purpose of this is to give you what needs to be read. So whatever I am discussing is all that you need to go through. The Human Capital Index looks at potential, and the Human Development Index looks at opportunities of growth. They're by two different organizations. That is why they are the larger aspects. Okay, don't worry, Harsh, I'm very calm. All right. Okay. So you have looked at something called your inequality index as well. Now, this has been in the news recently. This has been in the news largely because India has grown by just about one rank. So it's not a major development. Though in India, we make it seem like it's a big development. It's currently at 129. So it has increased from 129 to 128. You don't need to know India's current rank. You just need to understand that there has been an improvement, which is why the Human Development Report is important, So you must understand the components of it and the indices of the report, and that's all. What are these indices? Yeah, the Human Development Report includes all of these. Yes, we also include transgenders when we look at gender reports, because third gender is the transgenders have been regarded as the third gender. Okay, you don't need to know where we need to improve for the pre, you need to know where we need to improve for the mains. This is for the prelims only. Okay, all right. Miscellaneous, just the name of the index and the organization, just in case they ask. Just in case they ask. Okay, this is something we must look at it. Okay, now first is the Global Innovation Index, which essentially is which country is the most innovation friendly in terms of policies and larger developments. For the same, there is an organization called WIPO. WIPO stands for the World Intellectual Property Organization. Now, innovation is essentially a sub-function. Intellectual property is a sub-function of innovation, which is why the World Intellectual Property Organization is the one which drafts the Global Innovation Index. It basically ranks countries which have policies which allow for the best forms of innovation to exist. What kind of policies? Trademark policies, copywriting policies, patenting policies, the process of getting these, protecting these, the dispute uh, uh, mechanisms for these. That's all you need to know. You don't need anything else at all. Okay. Global Hunger Index. This is essentially seeing which countries have policies, or in which country the general penetration of hunger is the highest. Okay, so the Global Hunger Index is the International Food and Policy Research Institute. Abhishek, it has not been changed. Now there are going to be two organizations to this. One is going to be doing the technical and the data analysis to this. The second would be doing the analysis part of it. So the technical data part of it is going to now happen through International Food Policy Research Institute, and the analysis is going to happen. The analysis is going to happen. Hello. Yes, the analysis is going to now happen with Worldwide SINA, but the data collection exercise is still happening with the International Food Policy Research Institution. Okay, that's the Global Hunger Index. Now, third, the Global Migration Report. This is not an index. This is basically looking at what are the conditions, what are the kind of policies, what are different countries doing to make the lives for migrants better. It is done by something called the International Organization for Migration. This again becomes slightly important. It becomes important because, according to this report, India sends out the largest number of migrants in the world. Okay, so one of the largest number of diasporic migrants in the world are through the are through India, as per the Global Migration Report. Okay, these are international organizations. They don't necessarily need to. Their programs don't have to be done. Okay, the World Investment Report is also not very relevant. It essentially looks at, again, investment policies of a country. So it's just another organization doing the same thing. It's called the UNCAD. UNCTAD is the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. That's all that is. That's nothing more you need to know. Okay. Now, now we come to the dark part, the shady part. Okay, if you look at the last three: corruption index, press freedom index, and democracy index, they have been in the news. We'll do the mandate tomorrow when I discuss international organizations. Kinshuk, don't worry. So, corruption perceptions index and the press freedom index, as well as the democracy index, India hasn't been doing very well on it for fairly obvious reasons, uh, as we can see in the news recently. Okay, so there are three different organizations which do this. Transparency International is an organization which figures out which country is perceived to be more corrupt. Please understand this. This means it is perceived to be more corrupt. So India has there's not a major change, but the fact that corruption perceptions index is written by the Transparency International. press freedom index. How free is the press of India, and how democratic is the press of India? And we all know the answer to that, and I'll not get into such details because of the same, for obvious reasons. Yes, Tarun. But the press freedom index is actually written by an organization called Reports Without Borders, right? Reporters Without Borders. There are multiple organizations: Doctors Without Borders, Engineers Without Borders. Lawyers, anyways, don't have any borders. So Lawyers Without Borders, and there's something called Reporters Without Borders. So Reporters Without Borders basically is an NGO which supports free press, which helps reporters go to different parts of the world and report on stories that actually need to be reported on, so that action can be taken on the same. Right? Yes. So the Press Freedom Index is by an organization called Reporters Without Borders. Okay, and lastly is Democracy Index. This is by a magazine. You would have heard of a magazine called The Economist. Now they have something called the Economist Intelligence Unit, which is essentially an organization within the magazine which ranks countries, which basically means ranks countries on how free and fair the elections of the country are. India also hasn't performed very well on this for obvious reasons, but Democracy Index is essentially prepared by the Economist Intelligence Unit. The chances of these three being asked in the exam are very, very low because India has performed very badly on these. Now, the prelims exam will not ask you bad things about India, they'll always ask you good things about India. So the chances are very low, but just in case, if they do, let us see how that happens. Okay, so that is all that is need to know. Yeah. Naturally, no. Okay. Lastly, that's all that you need to know. There are the if UN is the world ranking organization, Niti Aayog is what UN is to the world. We understand this very simply. What UN is to the world, Niti Aayog is to India. If UN has rankings, Niti Aayog also has rankings. These now please understand. If the UN ranks countries, then the Niti Aayog ranks states. The general idea is southern states usually perform better than northern states. Okay, across uh, uh, the parameters. Okay, and that's dominantly what the Niti Aayog does. They, for the most part of what they do, is make indices. So the Composite Water Management Index is a ranking of states who have better policies on saving water. The SDG India Index is basically ranking states in India on which state is closer to achieve the SDG goals. Okay, healthy India, progressive India is obviously for looking at which state has the best health practices. And School Education Quality Index, this by the way is new. The School Education Quality Index largely looks at the which state has the uh, systems of school education and their larger ecosystems. ठीक है, and that's all. Beta, Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat report does not have to be done at all. Okay, so 2008 Rule of Law Index was asked because it was in the news. That is why it was asked, which is why I asked. You know, we don't need to mug up your questions, the ranks. No, you don't need to do the rank of the states also. Now, just hold on a second. Just hold on a second. Let me figure this out and let me tell you how this works. First things first, the slides of this are available on the Telegram channel. I have already mentioned the link of the channel. You can go there and it is shared right before it. So you don't have to worry about where do you get PDFs of this. Second, a copy of this will also be available on YouTube. So you can always watch this again and you have an access to the slides at the same time. Okay, that's all that you really need to know. Now let me look at some specific questions which have been asked. I'll see the questions which have been first posted. Okay, do we need to okay, let me just go to these questions actually one by one. Do we need to go into the details of indices of the Niti Aayog? No. Same question. No. For index, do we need to do the top five or top last? You don't need to know any of the ranking of countries. Specific ranks of countries don't need to be known. So, for example, how southern India generally performs better than northern India. Usually, Norway, Sweden, and Finland are the countries which perform better than all other uh, countries. Okay, so that is enough that you need to know. All right. Okay. uh right, I'll check your email. Oxfam reports don't have to be done for the prelims exam. They're not needed. They're very important for the mains. So is India at 75. Very important for the mains, Mandeep. Do we need to remember top performing countries? No. Healthy India, Progressive India, Prabhat is basically ranking the states on which state has better healthcare practices. Okay. Uh, Yes, the International Food Policy Research was the data collection agency. Now the analysis has been given to somebody else. Yes, I've updated it on the previous Unacademy session about the per hectare requirement. No, you don't need to know state rankings. A forest survey report might be needed for your environment part. I am not qualified to teach environment, so I'm sorry. You don't need to know the details of indices in the Niti Aayog report. Okay, all right. What else? Abhijit, I don't know. I don't know geographic GI tags properly, but yes, in 2016 is because there was a change in India's performance in 2016. That is why in 2016 we had taught the conditions to the global hunger index. So please understand there's a context to everything. Okay, environmental reports would be done separately. Um, okay. We don't have an international good governance index. The internal good governance indices are usually prepared by the Niti Aayog. Global talent competitiveness index is a very, very narrow index. We don't need to worry about it. It's not important enough. Okay. Inequality adjustment index is basically which country has the most form of inequality. Education and health bank I've already covered in the last session. You can just go back and have a look at it on YouTube. It's available. School quality education index is nothing but which states have the best schooling education systems. That's it. Just the basic components is more than enough. So the good governance index essentially is there's one which is on competitive federalism. So which state in India has the best institutions in place to promote competitive federalism, which also affects good governance. And then you have the good governance index, which is collectively prepared by the UNDP to provide technical details. The Ministry of Personnel and Grievances, which is going to be the analysis authority, and the Niti Aayog, which will provide operational support to conduct it. So any report which has more than one person authoring it is not important. SDG India Index is basically which state, how are states performing with respect to their SDG goals, and that's largely the idea. All right. So the idea basically is which state, for example, how far is UP from achieving its SDG goals, Tamil Nadu from achieving its SDG goals. Okay. So that is pretty much it. I'm going to do a separate session on economic survey boxes. I've already released the session dates on my channel and on Academy, so you can have a look. You should not have a problem with the same. Okay. So that should be it. We are good to go. Yes, this is all you need to know. There's nothing more you need to know from the indices and reports are concerned. This is all you need to know. If you know this, you'll be able to answer most questions. Please don't read any more detail than the ones that we have prescribed. It was so nice to see all of you guys again. I hope you're keeping well, you're keeping safe. My love and respect to your parents, my regards to you and your people at home. Uh, Please take blessings from me on behalf of your parents. Please take care. I wish all of you a great, great day, and may you all have lead healthy lives. All right. Thank you. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 4 p.m. With international organizations, because that's very, very important. See you guys tomorrow. Take care. Thank you. Bye bye. See you. And before we forget, please, after the session is over, be very, very nice if you could leave some feedback so that I can improve. I can give you what you're asking for, and also is a certain sense of appreciation and encouragement. Thank you so much, guys. See you guys. Thank you. Bye bye.